Welcome to Imperfection in Progress, a podcast for ambitious women who are people pleasers, perfectionists, or procrastinators. Want to feel less stress and more joy in your life? Then this is for you. I'm your host, Dawn Calvinisti. Today on Imperfection in Progress, I'm speaking to Jenn Trepeck about how food issues show up for people pleasers, perfectionists, and procrastinators, especially around the idea of consistency over perfection. Jenn Trepeck has been described as a force of nature in the wellness space, recognized as one of Podcast Magazine's 40 Under 40, and was nominated for the 2022 International Women's Podcast Award for Visionary Leadership. She is an optimal health coach, podcaster, and business consultant. Jenn grew up the skinny one in the family of dieters, which was awesome until it went away, and so began her weight management saga. Ultimately, Jenn learned the nutrition education we're all supposed to know, but no one ever taught us. This completely changed her life and allowed her to say she kicked her food issues. From then, Jenn set out on a mission to pay it forward and help people help themselves. After over a decade of working with clients, Jenn started Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. Based on science, yet lighthearted, Jenn talks about living life while still prioritizing ourselves and our health. I know we can all relate to the all or nothing mindset when it comes to diet and exercise. Here's my conversation with Jenn. Welcome to the podcast, Jenn. I am so excited to have you here. I have to tell you, this sounds like a little bit of a fangirl, but you are one of my favorite all-time summit speakers and one of my favorite podcasts that I regularly listen to. So I just want you to know I really love you.
Well, thank you. I was going to say, I'm so excited to be here because I love chatting with you. We've now done it a few times, and I appreciate that so much more than it means the world. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So for those who don't know you, I mean, I know I introduced you, but tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. So, my background, it's funny. Initially, I studied business and marketing, and I had my own personal saga going on between me and the scale and my health and growing up a dancer and then gaining weight. And then my family we're all dieters. So then when I gained weight, I was like, cool, I'll do all the diets. Whether you call it a merry-go-round, a roller coaster, whatever it was, I was on it. And ultimately, I am now a health coach. I started health coaching in 2007 after experiencing a program, so to speak, or an education that changed my life completely. I call it the nutrition education we're all supposed to know and no one ever taught us. And it is the only thing that allowed me to say I've kicked my food issues. And so I started working with clients on the side of my full-time job. I built my business on the side for 12 years.
Wow.
And then I know in July of 2019, I left my full-time job, launched my podcast in August of that year. So Salad with a Side of Fries. And, the rest, as they say, is history. Now we're here over 3 years later. There is no looking back. But I think the biggest thing in my own life and the work that I do is, it's the food stuff, right? We've been taught a whole lot about what to eat, what not to eat, but we've never actually been taught how to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a difference there. And then the other side of it is whether it was things that came up in my own life or my clients, I would dig into the psychology side of it and the motivation side of it and all the things of like, we could know all the things to do. Doing it is sometimes another story. And so I really work on all of the pieces with my clients and with myself. We're all a work in progress, as they say, but super passionate about this.
Yeah. And you can feel it in everything that you do, that this is like the place you are meant to be. And I think it's really cool what you just said about like, that's when you learn to kick your food issues. For
Yeah.
me, that almost like creates an excitement in my gut. But there was a time where that would probably have sent me into a panic. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't have any control of my food issues. So
And I don't even know what life could be like if I didn't have food issues. Like, what does a person do?
yeah, yeah. And I love, like, I follow you on Instagram. I see your posts of being around New York and you ate this at this place and that at that place. And I'm like, nobody looking just at your food pictures would think that you have issues with food because you just look like you enjoy whatever you're having wherever you are.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. So that's a partnership I'm doing with an organization called Flavors of New York and helping bring people back to small restaurants in the city, help an industry that was really decimated with the pandemic. And
Mhm.
so bring people back, show you guys our favorite things on the menus, talk to the owners, the chefs, and get everybody eating out again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool to watch all of that. So tell us a little bit, because I mean, on this podcast, we talk a lot about people pleasing. We talk a lot about perfectionism. We talk a lot about procrastination. And I have to say, from my own background, because it is in natural health and we talk a lot about food and moving our bodies and all of that, I collect these three P's, especially in women. And it seems to me like the food issues follow perfectionists and people pleasers and procrastinators to a degree beyond what I ever expected. So where is this coming
100%.
from?
Yeah. Because it's sort of a combination of those things about ourselves with a culture and a world around us that puts a lot of emphasis on food,
Mhm,
right? In life and virtually every culture, religion, anything, anywhere in the world,
mhm.
they have certain foods, they have certain things they do, certain behaviors around food at certain times of the year, whatever it is. Food is part of our cultural, communal, religious, functional human identity.
Mhm.
So when we put those things together, it's a recipe for chaos, right? Because we're celebrating. There's food. Somebody else made something. We're people pleasers. Well, of course we need to eat it, right? Or it's so complicated because food can be love.
Mhm.
Then our saying no to, right, to someone, if we're holding our ground and we're like, I'm not doing it this time, right? We also feel like we're taking away that love. We're not giving them what they're trying to do.
Mhm.
And so it becomes sort of like, am I allowed to swear?
Go for it.
It's like a shit sandwich. It's just a cake of poop because we just keep sort of adding insult to injury and layer upon layer. And we're sitting here going, I don't even know how to function because our perfectionism, if we're stick to a plan, right? And we end up then even more stressed out, which adds fuel to the fire and another layer to the shit sandwich.
I never really even thought about the fact that when you said like they're handing us food in the sense like I'm giving you love, like I created this for you. And then us rejecting that. So on both sides, right? Us feeling horrible that we could be hurting somebody, people pleaser, them maybe feeling rejected by our lack of love for their food. And then us saying no is a rejection of their love. And at the same time, us feeling like we don't want to hurt somebody. So I should eat your love, right? I never thought of
Right.
it that way. As a people pleaser, I could totally see going down that path.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? But it requires us to develop the tool belt, as I call it, right? Some of it is skills that we can learn. Some of it's just having some phrases in our tool belt or things so that when we're in those situations, we can draw on some of these tools and figure out the right tool for the right spot. And
Yeah.
I think even on the procrastination front, how many times have we said, I'll start on Monday, right? I'll start the new year. That's a good time. The new year after the next holiday.
That's right. Mine's always been like the first of the month. Like
Yeah.
this month is now right off until maybe the third, right? Or whatever, the fifth or
Right. But
but
then the first of the month is like a Thursday. And you're like, who starts something on a Thursday?
yeah, it'll be a Monday. I'll start Monday. Yeah. And we really can talk ourselves like around food with so much stuff going on in our head that we aren't even recognizing is in there and why we make those decisions.
Absolutely. I mean, we can also justify anything, right? We can make everything fit any plan, whatever that is. And again, part of it is about the people pleasing part of it's all of those things are part of the justification.
Mhm.
And then I think it really just comes down to deciding what your priorities are and then building the things around that.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about being a perfectionist because we haven't really touched that yet. But this is one area that I think is so interesting when it comes to food. Like, not just food, but our bodies, how we diet, how we exercise, what we believe, what we think we have to meet, like match up to as far as expectations to do it right and to do it the best so we don't fall off the wagon. All of that is another whole area. And I love that you talk a lot about how the industry also helps us with that and our environment health.
Yeah, I mean, in every diet I ever did, there were rules and a list of food, and I followed them or I didn't, right? The perfectionism is good, bad, on, off, following or not following. And we have our self-worth tied to that, right? I am good because I ate good or right, or those kinds of I followed the plan, I did the things. We live in this world of black and white. And the reality is, first of all, if your plan is black and white, it's not the plan. We're gonna create a new one. But part of the journey, part of the I hate that word too, but part of the process of finding our health, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, all of health, is learning to live in that gray area between the black and the white.
Mhm.
Because the truth is, right, and we all theoretically know this, right? Perfect doesn't exist. In fact, beyond perfect doesn't exist. The end point doesn't exist. Because whenever we get there, wherever there is, we're now going to have an awareness of the next thing. And so it's progress. We're always moving forward, hopefully, right? There's always a next thing. That thing might change over time. But the idea that there's a there, check the box, done is also part of the challenge and part of what sets us up for failure or the feeling of failure, especially when we're perfectionists. And we are because there's a lot of our tendencies, and I say our intentionally, like, hello, raising my hand, perfectionist over here. And it's like, I'm such a perfectionist also that I will not the phrase like, oh, I'll try my best,
Mhm.
right? First of all, I don't use the word try generally. And I know that my best is making that work. My best is 100% yes. So I won't even say I'll try my best for fear that I'm actually not going to do it. And then I'm telling them that my best is not 100%.
Right.
Like, I won't even use that phrase. Like, if it comes into my head, I'm like, let me see what I can do or something like, but we have these things in us of these are the rules. We're going to follow them. And if we're slightly off, then there's a problem. And the reality is there's not. It's our perception that there's a problem that's actually the challenge.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you've been a perfectionist. You've had those tendencies. What is it that changed for you? What was the thing that you realized, okay, yeah, this is not possible. Like I need to stop this loop.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I really finally understood and learned that perfection's not required because are we okay with a little bit of like science
Yeah,
stuff?
go for it.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. So whether we are, and again, I'm speaking from the weight management, metabolic health perspective, okay? Whether we are burning fat or storing fat is a function of our blood sugar.
Mhm.
When our blood sugar is too low, we're storing everything we eat as fat. Our body is survival. You will not kill me. I am going to take what you give me and store it as fat to survive because it must be a time of famine, right? If we eat too much, we're spiking our blood sugar. Our body is storing all this extra fuel as fat, and the extra insulin is fat. That's the short version. There's longer versions of explaining it. But when we keep our blood sugar levels stable, we're never in the high or the low. We're never storing fat. And our body will actually release its fat stores. So I always say it's not magic, it's science. But the pieces of it that are magical are, like I said, number one, when we're consistent with our blood sugar,
Mhm.
our body will release its fat stores because it realizes it doesn't need them. And two, when we're consistent, our body can handle the occasional spike.
Right.
So if what we're after is consistency in this middle range, maybe we just got to make that middle range a little wider, right? What is the thing? What is the plan? What is the approach that I can do consistently so that we're never going into these extremes? And that's what's going to get us to where we want to be. In business, right? I mentioned I built my business on the side for 12 years. Oof. 12 years is a long time. That was never, right. That was never the plan. Let me also say that, right? What would happen though is I'd choose a pace. I'd be going crazy hard at a pace I couldn't sustain. So I'd do a ton and then I'd do nothing. And then I'd do a ton and I would do nothing. I wasn't really ever moving forward. The times when I moved forward was when I did a little bit every day. Right? It's the consistency that actually moves us forward over the perfection. I also call it like consistency versus intensity. So even in our exercise, in our activity, a lot of times we think that like if it's not long enough, if it's not hard enough, it doesn't count. Right?
Right.
Usually, the more intense something is, the more difficult it is to maintain. There might be times when we push, but if the expectation is that every time we do anything, it's 1,000 bajillion%, sometimes really hard to find that time, right? So there are times we might choose moments of intensity, but overall, if we look at consistency, instead of starting and stopping 150,000 times, we can actually make some progress, right? It's not like you went to recess once in second grade and you're like, cool, I'm done. Thank you. It's not how it works. And the body doesn't store up the activity minutes from second grade for now. And it's not like the body says, oh, you ate some vegetables yesterday? Cool, cool. We're good. Like, no, we got to keep doing that. The body uses it, hopefully, right? So it's, for me, it was like thinking about it in these ways and learning that what's actually going to get us to where we want to be versus what's truly counterproductive and actually hurting our progress
Mhm.
was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when your mindset starts to become like actually doing less
It's
consistently
more.
is more, right? Like that's a really hard thing to get your head around if you are the extreme, right? If you're
Yeah.
that perfectionistic personality where it's all or nothing, you don't realize how much that yo-yo is hurting your progress
Yeah.
and how much doing less but consistently can really
And
move
the
you
other,
forward.
and the procrastination piece,
Mhm.
if we're going from these extremes of all and nothing, right? It requires us to muster everything in us to get started again
Yes.
versus getting that momentum of doing a little bit all the time, right? It's a lot easier to say to myself, oh, I just have to make that one phone call, right? I can psych myself up to like find the energy to make the phone call, write the one article, do the things, right? But if we're trying to say, because we have that perfectionist all or nothing, we're trying to muster the energy to write the year's worth of articles today.
Right.
Like that, I'm going to procrastinate, right? That
Yeah.
feels like a whole lot more. So it's like, to me, all of these things fit together and feed each other. And so in that regard, working on one is working on all of them.
Yes.
But also giving time and energy and saying, oh, I'm only going to focus on one is actually doing yourself a disservice.
Yes. True. True. I love the idea, like when you start to recognize where you're doing yourself the disservice, right? In
Yeah.
whichever area that you tend to lean into more, whether it's the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the procrastinating, maybe all of them, right? But whatever you tend to do, it's not just affecting your weight. It's not just affecting your relationship. It's not just affecting how you work, right? Like it covers every area of your life. And when you start to notice where you're struggling in one area, you'll see that across the board.
Yeah. Because as they say, who we are anywhere or how we operate anywhere is who we are and how we operate everywhere.
Yes.
At least we can put up a front, right? Like we all know those people who are really good in short spurts, but like longer periods of time, they can't persist, right? We're
Right.
all that way. If it's our true nature, that's the piece where we sort of want to have that awareness of like noticing how it's showing up in all these other places is sometimes easier as a first step
Mhm.
to rather than trying to change it in the area that we recognize it's the biggest problem. So, for example, a friend of mine is a big people pleaser, especially in romantic relationships. We were out to eat. She came to one of the filmings at a restaurant the other day. And I don't know, something came up. We were trying to do math about like when the restaurant opened, right? Like how many years had this restaurant been open? And I threw out a quick number that was probably wrong. She actually threw out the correct number. And then the guy that we were with who does the filming threw out another number and she goes, "Yeah, you're right." He wasn't right. But her instinct was to second guess herself and assume that he was right because her people pleasing nature was like, "I don't care. Like let him be right even if literally it was math." I mean, there was an actual right and wrong number. If any of us had just paused for long enough, we could have done the real math and instead of all of us guessing and throwing random numbers out. But like she pointed it out, even like, wait, look at what I just did there.
Mhm.
So like the awareness of it and sometimes being able to recognize it in these other places can help us make the tweaks when it shows up in the place that we maybe care more about.
Right. Right. So in the coaching end of things, when you're talking to somebody and you're seeing this as something that's causing the issues, right? That it's the thing that's thwarting them and keeping them from really getting to where they want to go. Where do you first start? What do you suggest that they do?
To me, the first piece is individually deciding what's the outcome you want,
Mm.
right? What is it that I'm actually after? So I had a client, he's married. He really, weight has been a thing his whole life. He's really focused on it. He's making a lot of progress. His partner grew up in a culture that ate dessert every night and also grew up in a culture where if I didn't offer it to you, if we didn't share it, then I am like a terrible human, right? That I have to offer this, we have to share it. So my client says to me, I feel like every night at the end of the day, I have to muster the courage to say no to this dessert. No matter what it's like the end of the day, all of the things are sort of stacked against him and all he wants to do is just like go relax. And this is the moment where he has to like muster all of the courage. So we had a conversation of like, what do you ultimately want? And he's like, I want to feel good. I want to go to bed not beating myself up about something. I want to feel like I don't have to muster everything in me at the end of every day. Right.
Right.
So, like, okay, if that's what we're after, right, then what needs to exist for that to happen? We need him to not offer you the dessert so that it removes that moment. Right? Not to say there won't be other times, but at least a majority of the days when it's just the two of you eating at home.
Right.
It doesn't need to be a thing. So we came up with something to say so that it validates where his partner is coming from and gives everybody what they're looking for, gives the reason why, and an alternative behavior, telling them what you want them to do instead. Because a lot of times people want to be supportive, they just don't know how. Even like they're looking at, are you sure you can eat that? Right? That's not helpful, but they want to be supportive. We have to tell them what that looks like. We have to tell them what to do. So the conversation they ended up having was, hey, I love that you love me so much that you want to share this with me every night. And I totally feel your love when you do that. For me, I have to muster everything in me at the end of every day to say no, because I'm really looking to make sure that I am alive for the rest of our lives together, right? That I want this to be a long life together. I'm really focused on this health stuff. So is it possible that like when you get your dessert, I'll assume that you are offering me some and I'll know, like, it'll be the unspoken thing, right? Like, I assume that anytime you're having dessert, that it's an inherent offer to me, and I'll let you know when I want a bite.
That's
You know,
good.
we have to tell them what we need them to do. We don't want to take away, especially the people-pleasing part, right? We still want to give them what they're looking for. I had another client, they moved into a new apartment, he and his wife. People kept bringing them and sending them, like, cookies and like, all these things as housewarming gifts, and, like, it was so nice, but they're like, "We don't need these, we don't want to eat these," like, "What?" So, they created a ritual where they would each have one of the cookies that somebody sent. They would send the person a thank you note, do the thing, and they would have, like, a little ceremony over the garbage with the cookies to say, "Thank you for serving your purpose. We feel welcomed into our home. We no longer need you to feel welcome into our home." And they would throw them out, right? But it's like, we have a thing about throwing out food. Like, they don't
Yes.
know.
Yes. That's
They don't
beautiful
know.
because it takes that guilt away, right? We feel guilty throwing out food, even though we don't want it.
Yeah. And it
That's
doesn't
fantastic.
serve us, right? We might feel guilty throwing it out. We also feel guilty after we've eaten it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's actually not serving us either way.
Yeah, that's very true. So true. So tell us a little bit about if we are ready to move on, right? We've reached this place where we're no longer going to go for the all or nothing. And we're looking to widen that gray space in the middle. What's something that I could do, say today? What's something I could do today when I look around at my fridge, my cupboards, maybe my exercise routine that I think I need to be on because that's what I've always done? What's one thing I can do today to move into that gray space?
Yeah. Have those foods around, right? The things that you're like, oh, I can't keep that in my house. Have them there. Have them like, it's all or nothing behavior if we don't allow them in our house. And there are sometimes moments for that, sure, right? There are also moments where we might want to say, you know what? I can have cookie dough in the freezer. I can actually forget that it's even there, right? And having 2 spoons of peanut butter and then putting it away. It's sometimes a practice. Like, I sort of joke when I order delivery, they always think there's like 4 people eating and it's just me. But it's because I want a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so for a while, especially in the beginning, the idea that I didn't finish everything I ordered and I had a little bit left of everything and put it back and put it in the fridge and I could have another meal out of it was a big thing. But it helped, right? I could eat a little bit and be done with it.
Yes.
I could have the peanut butter, the cookie dough, the chips, whatever.
Yeah.
And I can have a few and put it away, and practicing that.
Yes. Yep. I just said this to a client, I think yesterday or the day before, the same idea that when I went from it was all or nothing to it was all in the house and knowing I could have it at any point in time, it totally changed the feeling of I have to eat it all because I might not ever have it again because I'm not
Yes.
supposed to I can have it again tomorrow if I want to. So I actually would rather have it tomorrow. I'm not really wanting it right now.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that was such a game changer.
I remember feeling like at times, every time I ate, it was like I was eating like it was the last time I was ever going to eat in my life. No matter what
Yes.
I was eating, there was like that energy behind it. And that energy often came from the restriction and the
Mhm.
trying to be perfect on the diet and whatever it was.
Mhm.
So then, even if what I was eating was a plate of like steamed tofu and vegetables, it had the energy behind it of
Yes.
I may never get food again.
Yes.
So there's a piece to even saying to yourself, it's okay. I can actually eat this again. If I want it tomorrow, I can get it tomorrow. Right? Even a holiday,
Mhm.
we can actually eat pumpkin pie at other days than Thanksgiving. I know. I just blew everybody's mind. You're welcome. Yes, you can actually get canned pumpkin all year round. They sell it always.
That is
I know I just blew your mind a little.
totally did. Totally
You
did.
did. I know.
Oh, well, Jen, it is awesome just hanging out with you and talking this through because, like I said, I think this is an area where, whether it's food, diet, or even just an all or nothing mindset around anything, it's an area where, a lot of us struggle. And so I love that we were able to chat about this today. And I also want everybody to know, I'm going to throw this in the show notes, but Jen is actually offering you a free one-on-one discovery call. So if any of this just registered with you and you feel it, and I know, like, even for me as somebody who's recovering from this kind of attitude, it just gets you in the gut, like, oh, that's me. Like I'm in that area. So if you are stuck in that, then reach out to Jen because she is awesome, obviously. And I would really love for you to be able to connect with her personally. So take a look in the show notes and you can go ahead and book that with her.
Thank you. I love having this conversation with you and chatting with you always. So thank you for the invitation.